You've hit on something really important there. Trauma specialists actually have a term for this. They call it strategic regression. It's this idea of choosing what seems like a worst situation in order to create a chance for safety later on. It's kind of counterintuitive, right?
It is. But in a way, Ruth was choosing the unknown horror of the desert over the known horror of her abuser.
That totally changes how we look at this whole thing. It's not just a woman fleeing in terror, but a woman making a calculated, albeit desperate gamble for her survival.
Exactly. And that, to me, is where we start to see the true nature of Ruth's courage. It's not about some grand heroic act. It's about those tiny, defiant choices made in the face of overwhelming odds.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, does she consciously make that choice, or was it something deeper, like a primal instinct kicking in?
Right.
And this whole idea of strategic regression, it makes you think maybe those stories about people disappearing in the desert weren't just stories. Maybe for some people, disappearing was the whole point, a way to escape something even worse.
Okay, now that is a chilling thought. But it makes sense in a way, right? And every direction looks like a dead end. Maybe vanishing into the unknown is the only option left.
And the desert itself might play a role in that too. You know, that vast emptiness, the lack of any familiar landmark. It's almost like the desert can just swallow you whole, erase your past, that kind of spatial, temporal disruption where your normal sense of time and space gets all distorted. Can be incredibly disorienting.
So in a way, the very thing that makes the desert so scary, that feeling of being lost and alone, that could also be what makes it a refuge for someone like Ruth. It's like the desert offers a chance to completely break free, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too.
Exactly. It's a chance to sever those ties that bind you to a traumatic past. And as terrifying as that initial leap into the unknown might be, it also offers a glimmer of hope, a chance to start over.
And of course, nobody believes her story. She's labeled delusional and institutionalized.
Which is sadly a pretty common experience for survivors of trauma, especially when their stories involve something strange or inexplicable. Society tends to dismiss those accounts as fantasy or hysteria, which just adds to the burden they already carry. That brings up an interesting psychological concept called crisis incorporation. It's a way of understanding how survivors sometimes integrate their trauma into their very identity, sometimes literally.
So those scars, they weren't just physical wounds. They were a symbol of what she endured, a permanent reminder of her encounter with the unknown.